asked you guys to send me in some questions in order to cap off 2024, and you sent in some doozies. 2024 was kind of a crazy year for me. I had a bit of a slow start to the channel because I was just getting back from my honeymoon that I took at the end of 2023. I was moving my family into a new house, and then throughout 2024, Steph and I were also pregnant and then had our first child, baby Josie. It's been a year of balance and focus, and I'll get more into that as I answer your questions. I split the questions into 3 different categories. The first one being about gear, and then projects that I'm working on, and then the third category being general life questions. And I'll sprinkle in some behind the scenes on how the channel operates as we go through the questions. Starting off with the questions about gear, the first question that I got was, if I was hiking the Great Divide Trail again, would I use the Atotech Food Locker or the Ursack Bear Bag? And for some context, the Atotech Food Locker is an IGBC certified bear bag. So it's been tested with grizzly bears and it's been certified by the IGBC in order to resist grizzly bears. And I would probably choose the Atotech bag over the Ursack for 3 different reasons. First of all, it's lighter. And then the second one, it's waterproof. And then third, and probably the most important, is that it's critter proof. So if you have pine martens or porcupines around, then it is advertised to be able to resist those. I haven't tested that out myself. I want to do that this summer, but it's a big benefit for me. The second question is if I've done any real world cold weather testing of the Hikenture 6.2 sleeping pad. It's a very affordable sleeping pad, under $100. It has an R value of 6.2. It has a similar baffling system to the Nemo Tensor line, so it's fairly comfortable, not the most comfortable, but not too bad. And so far, I haven't been able to test it out. I've had the Hikenture 6.2 out, the Light Tour 7.5, and the Nature Hike 8.8 in a pack on my floor, ready to go testing for a while now, but I just haven't been able to get out and see how they do in cold temperatures. I got a few different questions asking me about how I organize my gear and what my general systems are. And I was thinking about that. It'd be a fun video for me to make, but I'm not sure how applicable it would be for most people out there because I just have so much gear. I have tons of gear. I'm taking up half of our basement, half of our garage. I have dozens and dozens of sleeping pads, tents, packs. So I need a few more different systems for organizing gear, and maybe that'd be an interesting thing for you guys to see. Let me know down in the comments. But yeah, I don't have any plans for making that kind of video anytime soon. Another question that I get in a few different ways, so I'm kind of paraphrasing this, is have you tried XYZ gear? So whether that's Hilleberg tents, Nashville packs, tarp tents, I get this question a lot asking about specific gear that I don't necessarily talk about on the channel that often. And well, I've been lucky to test probably as much, if not more gear than anyone else in the world. I haven't had a chance to test out everything. There's still stuff that I need to test out. And the reason why I might not be testing something is usually it's because the product is just very difficult to get, or it's not something that I'm excited about. I don't like testing gear that I'm not excited about. I want it to be something that I'm excited to get in the field, test out, see how it does, and hopefully solve some sort of problem that I might have in the backcountry, or a problem that I think that you guys might have. Another reason is that it might just be because the company that makes the product is difficult to work with. I prioritize testing gear where I have a dialogue with the company so that if I have questions for them or there's something about their design philosophy that I just want to be clarified, then I can reach out to them, ask that questions, and get a response. And there's so many good companies out there making really good products that I just rather focus on them than companies that are just difficult to work with. So hopefully that answers that question. There are companies that I've slowly developed a relationship with. For instance, Tarp Tent, they're sending me some tents this year that I'm testing out. I'm really excited for them. I took a look at the Arc Dome in 2024. I'm gonna be looking at the Rainbow in 2025. So yeah, really excited about some of those relationships developing. Hilleberg, if they're watching this video, then it would also be nice to talk with you guys. They just basically don't answer my emails at all. But they make some pretty cool tents, it seems. I also get some very, very specific gear questions, like what is the best tent for fill in the blank? And it's usually for very specific circumstances for people's very specific needs. And it's tough for me to answer those questions because I'm not you. I don't know exactly what you need or what the exact circumstances are. Maybe I haven't backpacked in this very specific location. But I do create a lot of gear awards and then do test trips. So I would take a look at those videos to see, as a starting place, I guess, in order to answer whatever questions you might have. I do talk about in my award videos how I think a piece of gear is best used. So if you search search my channel. There's a search bar on YouTube if you guys aren't aware, and you can put in keywords, and then YouTube's pretty good at suggesting what the best video is to answer whatever question you might have. So that's probably what I'd do if I were in your circumstance and I wanted some advice on what the best gear is for a specific scenario, or just use the YouTube search function. If I have a video about it, then it's gonna show up probably. The sixth question about gear had to do with Mountain Equipment Company, which is kind of the Canadian REI. And a lot of Canadians ask me why I don't review more gear from Mountain Equipment Company, or MEC as we call it here. And the reason for that is there's not a lot of products that MEC makes that I think are that good. They make a few products that I love, like their pants. I use those on every hiking trip that I go on. Their winter expedition booties are also amazing. But outside of that, there's just not a lot of products that I'm excited to test out. I have offered to MEC my kind of thoughts on how they can improve gear, what they could do in order to make their gear more appealing to people, but they weren't really looking for that and said, don't worry about it. So yeah, that's where I'm at with MEC. I think it'd be great if they started making some really cool products and I could recommend them because they do ship worldwide. And REI is doing some cool things with their house brand. It'd be nice to see MEC doing the same. This next question isn't really something that I thought I'd talk about, but I get the comments so much that I thought I'd address it. And that's, why don't I talk about pack size for gear more often? So like how big a sleeping pad or a tent packs down when you are packing into your pack. And the reason is that it's just not something that I find is that big of an issue for me. All the backpacking sleeping pads that I have are relatively small. Same with the tents. I generally kind of lean towards lighter weight gear, and that usually just has a smaller pack size. So it's not something that I actually look at, but I do know that it's important for bike packing and some other sports. So it's something that I try to show in videos, but I often forget. So I apologize for that, but for most people out there, I think it's not that big of an issue. And I do apologize for those of you where it is an issue, but I don't address it. This next question was really fun to kind of think about, and that's that the person would be interested for me to share some of the most impressive, useful, meaningful updates to products that happened this year and give credit to some companies that are innovating. And I have 4 different kind of thoughts on this, 4 different products, companies that I think did some really cool things in 2024. The first one is that Atotech bear bag that I mentioned. The Ursac's been the go-to bear bag for years, but the Atotech bag's doing some really cool things, and it's coming from a company, small Canadian company here, and it's yeah, just a really cool product. The second one is pad pumps. We started off the year with the FlexTail Zero pump, and there's a lot of excitement about that, but I never actually reviewed it, didn't really talk about it that much because it didn't excite me that much. I still think I prefer from FlexTail the Tiny Pump 2X, but later in the year, we got 2 super ultralight pumps that weigh under 10 grams in the PadPal pump and then the Alpenblow. They don't have internal batteries, so they use an external battery source in order to power them, but because of how lightweight they are and how little power they actually use, they're kind of a no-brainer to bring on trips now. They are expensive, so you do have to factor in that when you're budgeting for those tiny super ultralight pumps. But yeah, I bring the PadPal on pretty much every trip now because it's just such a cool little product, and I hate blowing up my sleeping pad at the end of the day. The third is the Thermarest Neoloft sleeping pad. Thermarest has had patents on some of the best technologies in order to create the warmest pads, the best warmth to weight ratio with the triangular core matrix, and then their reflective thermocapture technology. And I never found their pads super comfortable. They're usually on the more uncomfortable side of things for me. But with the Neoloft sleeping pad, they took all of their technologies and put it into a pad that focuses on comfort. It's super thick, it has a stretchy top material, and if you deflate a little bit, it's still very warm and very comfortable. And I think for a lot of people out there, it's probably going to be the most comfortable pad that you could get. And I could see it becoming one of the most popular pads in the backpacking world just because of how comfortable it is, while still being fairly lightweight and pretty compact as well. And then the fourth thing is the X-Dome tent from Durston Gear. One-person freestanding tents have always just kind of been this weird product category that I never really liked. There's tents, one-person freestanding tents that I thought they're okay, they'll get the job done, but I never thought they were great until the X-Dome came out, and it's finally a one-person freestanding tent that I actually think is good. It still has some room for improvement, and there was the issue with the pole set and the little aluminum ferrules coming out or getting pushed in, but the Durston Gear Company, they're addressing that. They're recalling all those poles, giving people new ones. And so that's really cool to see. And other than that, it's been an awesome tent in all my testing, and probably going to be my go-to tent for a lot of circumstances in 2025. The last question in the gear category is, how about you only review gear that you pay for? And this is an interesting question because I think about this a lot, because one of my primary kind of concern or my priority, I guess, is you guys, my audience, and the trust that we've built. So I'm always thinking about, am I doing things in a way that's creating the most trust and the least bias and all that kind of stuff. So I think the gist of it for most people is that they think a review is more trustworthy if a reviewer has purchased the gear themselves instead of having it sent to them as a review sample from the company that makes it. And those are kind of the two options. Reviewers either buy the gear or the company sends it to them, or they request the product from the company and then the company sends it to them. I think part of the reason why people think that buying the gear yourself creates a better, more trustworthy review is because they think that the reviewer will skew a review in order to keep getting that free gear from the company. And I have some thoughts on this, and let me explain why I think not paying for gear I review is not only a non-issue from a worthiness standpoint, but also a benefit to you guys, my audience. And so generally, I get 95% of the gear that I review from companies. Sometimes it's companies reaching out and saying, hey, we have this new product coming. Do you want to review? And I say, yes. Or 90% of the time I say, no, there's a lot of crap products out there. And then there's most of the time what's happening is I'm hearing about a product, I'm seeing it at a trade show, and then I'm reaching out to the company and saying, hey, I think this is a cool product. I'm interested in testing out. I think my audience would be interested in hearing about it. Can you send me a review sample? And then 9% of the time they do. So it's usually me reaching out to brands asking for product, because I don't want to review every piece of crap out there. I want to review things I think are actually interesting and fun to review. So let me get into some of the reasons why I don't think it impacts trustworthiness. The first one is that there's many psychological studies out there that show that people rate products higher the more they pay for them. So it's kind of a weird phenomenon, but it's true. I took psychology in university, and this is well documented. So if generally, just based on that trend as an example, people would rate something like a Z-Packs tent higher than like a Lunar Solo tent or a Six Moon Designs tent that's less expensive. And that's just because of the price that they're paying for it. So not paying for gear eliminates this bias for me. I think that's pretty minor, but something to keep in mind is if somebody's paid for gear, they're going to have that bias built into their review for it. Second, companies don't really care if I give a bad review because of the systems I've set up. Basically, before I publish a review, I'll reach out to the company, let them know what I think was good about the product, what was bad about the product, and give them an opportunity to let me know if I've made any user errors while using the product, and then let me know what their design philosophy is that might be contributing to something that I don't necessarily like. And a lot of the time this creates a good back and forth. I get a better idea of why they design things a certain way. And sometimes that creates just me questioning what their thinking was. For example, the Osprey Exos Pro pack, I sent them my thoughts and they're like, yeah, it's working as designed. I'm like, well, that's a pretty crappy design. You should probably improve. But most of the time the company's like, thanks for the feedback. They make some changes, or they just say like, we're going to keep going because it may not work for you, but it works for other people. Third, there's enough good companies and products out there that I don't need to be lying or skewing my reviews in order to pander to crappy products or crappy companies. I just really don't care if a company who is making crappy products cuts me off from review samples, because I don't really want to be testing those products anyways. I like testing products that I'm excited about and that are good. Like I said, there's just enough good gear out there that I don't need to be lying about crappy products. Moving into the second category of questions, and that's around projects that I'm working on. Starting right off with, a lot of people want to know what the status of the lid project I'm working on is, where it's at. And for those of you who don't know, that is basically a lid that you can snap a fuel canister in. You can store a lighter in there. It has a bunch of other really cool features, and then it snaps onto any 95 millimeter diameter pot. So basically any Tokes pot out there. And it's a really cool product. We're excited to get it out. Right now, we're just kind of finishing off getting the molds finalized. They're with the factory in Utah right now, and hopefully we start running some sample batches soon, and then we'll test those, make sure that everything's up to snuff from a food safety standpoint, dealing with hot temperature standpoint, and then we'll get products made and we'll get them out to you guys. If you are interested in keeping up to date on when the lid gets released, then I'll have a link in the description to a webpage you can go to, sign up for a mailing list where we'll send you an update when the lid's basically getting ready to be released. We haven't been sending any updates through that so far because we don't want to bombard people with emails, but it's where you'll get the most up-to-date information on the lid when it starts coming out. The second question, weren't you planning to do a stove comparison video? Is it off, just in the works? What's the estimated time for its release? So I have 35 stoves, I think, that are sitting in a bin right here. And right now I've been going through a variety of different tests. I've spent hours and hours and hours testing different variables for stove performance when it comes to wind, fuel level, temperature, like all these different things in order to standardize a testing procedure that I think will be good. And I'm still not quite there yet, but I'm going to release a video soon where I talk about testing all those different variables and what my results were. So it's going to address things like, how does pot size influence stove performance and boil times and fuel efficiency? How does temperature of a canister affect that? Whole bunch of different things. I'm excited for that video. And then that's going to kind of lead into the full 35 stove testing protocol, and then comparing all of them and seeing which one is the best and what does best even mean. Third question, have you considered putting your initial impressions on gear on your second channel? I think it'd be a fun way to show off some of the new stuff without people thinking you are recommending it. So for those of you who don't know, I have a second channel called Gear Priority, and it's where I do a lot of my reviews. So like one-off product reviews. On my main channel, a lot of the time I'll do like gear lists and awards, and that kind of summarizes all the testing that I've done. But on the second channel, it's just those one-off videos for gear products. And I haven't really posted too much to it recently, but I'm going to get back into it, start releasing more reviews because I have a lot of gear that I have a lot of thoughts on. I know that you guys are interested in it. I don't think I'll really put initial impressions there. The way that I'm going to be formatting my videos moving into 2025 is I'm going to have a few different kind of testing formats for videos. So I'm going to have test trips. So I'm going to take like usually about 5 pieces of gear that I really want to test in a specific kind of condition, whether that's cold or wind, or whether that gear kind of all falls into a similar category like budget friendly gear or ultralight gear. I'm going to test the gear on that trip, and then that's going to feed into kind of the awards and my reviews. The other things I'm going to do is I'm going to do versus. So I'm going to test one piece of gear against another piece of gear. A lot of time this would be gear that's kind of top of the category just to figure out which one might be better. And then I'm going to do the kind of lab testing or more quantitative testing, like I did with the stoves, and then like I did with the tents in the wind, where I took 6 tents out and had them just bombarded with 65-kilometer-an-hour winds and took a look at which ones failed. So those 3 types of tests are then going to feed into gear lists, awards, and reviews. So you're going to see those are basically going to be the mix of videos on the channel going into 2025. And then kind of in line with that, what's the status of the Gear Priority podcast? So I had a third channel, a podcast channel, and that's been on hiatus for about a year now because it was a lot of work getting guests and then editing it. And I liked doing it, but it was just a lot of work for the reward. Having a baby has really made it so that, like I said, I've been focusing a lot more this year on kind of the core parts of like my business and what I enjoy doing, and kind of letting other things slide a bit. So that's why things like the podcast, the Gear Priority review channel have kind of taken a back seat as I spend time with my daughter, my family, and just focus on getting on trips, having fun, and making videos I really like. Number 5 question in projects. This is an interesting one because it kind of builds off the lid, and it's, do you ever make your own gear? And like, I think that's more from like a make your own gear standpoint, where I'm like sewing things in my basement, and I don't. I'm not a good sewer. I don't really enjoy it. So I will never make gear in that way probably, but the lid is something that I've worked on. I've learned a lot about making gear from that process. And then I do have a few other items that I've been thinking about that I would like to make. I just need to figure out how to make connections with factories and get that whole process going, because there's one product in particular that I think would be awesome to make. There's nothing good in this product category on the market, and I just want to solve that problem for myself, and I think it'd solve a problem for a lot of you out there as well. And that brings us to the third category, which is kind of work life. And a lot of these questions came from Dakota Coburn, who is another YouTuber, outdoor YouTuber who lives on Vancouver Island, another Canadian. He has a great channel. He's hilarious. When I first started watching his channel, I was like, is he being serious? And I slowly got into his humor, and now it's one of those channels where I don't miss any videos. So go check him out. I'll have a link down in the video description as well. But his first question was, how has the work-life balance been, especially now with the little one? And I think in general, this is an interesting question for me because of how much I enjoy what I do with the YouTube channel. So work-life balance before I had a little one was there just wasn't a work-life balance, I guess. I never felt like I was really working. I would do things like researching gear, going on trips, testing gear. This is stuff that I did before I started a YouTube channel. And now I just get to do it more, and I get paid to do it. So it's awesome. And I would just work like 60, 80 hours a week, but it never felt like work. I think now that I have a baby, it's kind of shifted that work-life balance aspect a little bit more. And now there's more of a balance needed in order to like support my family from just like a time standpoint of being there to do things. And babies are a lot of work. If you guys have had a baby, you know what I'm talking about. Support my wife and I are balancing supporting each other throughout this journey, and then spending time with my daughter as well. Like I'm very lucky that I get to work from home most of the time, so I can run upstairs from the basement and like see I got to see her first smile. I got to see her first rolls. There's a lot of firsts that I'm getting experience, and I don't want to miss those. And I feel like I am lucky in the freedom that I have with this job, and I'm going to take advantage of that. So there has been more of a balance, a shift of priorities, but it's never been necessarily difficult for me. I think the most difficult thing has been probably just maybe the pressure to post. But even then, up until this video, I haven't posted in like 3 weeks really. I posted a compilation video, but that's it. And while that did stress me out a little bit, I still felt good taking that time. And I'll take that time when I need it, and I'm lucky that I can. The second question was, after being a full-time on YouTube for a few years, what are some of the pros and cons of doing this as a backpacking creator? And I would say that this really there's not many cons. I think the cons is that you have to have your mind right. Like I talk to a lot of creators out there, and the most difficult part is the mental game, dealing with the numbers and the ups and downs and the dopamine hits. For me, that's never been that big of a factor. And I've always taken a very methodical approach to the business side of things. And because of that, I've just been able to enjoy what I've been doing with YouTube. I tell people all the time, more in person when we're talking about it, this is the best job that I've ever had, and probably the best job for me in the world. Like if you took my personality, my traits, what I enjoy doing, what kind of fulfills me, and boiled that down to a job, it would probably be this job. And that's pretty cool to think about. And I feel very, very lucky that that's the case. It combines everything that I enjoy doing. I love spreadsheets. I love methodical testing. There's science involved. I went to university for science, and I get to go outside and experience the outdoors a lot. And that's where I recharge. So it kind of fulfills that need. I've mentioned that in a few trip videos where it's not like I like to go outdoors. I need to go outdoors. That's what recharges me. That's what makes me the best version of myself, and the best husband, the best father, the best friend. So I need to be getting out on those trips, and this allows me to do that, and then fulfills those other interests and kind of ways I like to challenge my mind. So yeah, best job ever. Not really that many cons for me, other than trying to keep on top of the mental challenges, which I feel like I've done a good job of over the years. What's the third question? How do you initially start relationships with brands for sponsored content? And that's an interesting one, because Sponsored content has always been a very small component of the channel. Let me know in the comments if you think that I should do like a full, like how this channel operates and makes money video. I did one a few years ago, but I could update that. Basically, sponsorships is about 15% of the revenue for the channel, which is a very small amount. Garage Growing Gear is like the primary sponsor for the channel, and it's been awesome working with them for like 3 years now, and we just have a very good relationship. And then I bring in some sponsors here and there. I'm always looking for like another Garage Growing Gear sponsor, just like a second core sponsor that shows up every month that I really enjoy working with, that I really enjoy their product, but that hasn't really materialized yet. Maybe it will in 2025, but it's not something that I'm focusing on. Really, I think with sponsors, it's about that relationship. So just reaching out to brands that you think are cool, seeing if they want to work together, and starting small and then kind of building from there. I think in 2025, I've been kind of talking about this with some other people, so I'll share with you guys. I think sponsorships on YouTube are going to I think creators are going to pull back a little bit from sponsorships with some of the brands that you normally see, like the Squarespaces, the VPN companies, like AG1, things like that, and kind of especially the big creators, and move towards their own products. Like if you look at how much sponsors pay those big YouTubers, it's a fraction of probably what they're worth relative to some other advertising streams. So we'll see creators they'll either buy the companies or create a competitor, like Mr. Beast has done with like burgers and chalky. Just like, you don't want to sponsor me for how much I'm worth. I'm just going to create a competitor and probably put you out of business. So I think we'll see more of that, especially from the big creators. And then for smaller creators like myself, I think we'll kind of just see maybe a little bit of a pullback, not quite as much, but maybe a focus on the good relationships. Like I'm going to focus on my relationship with Garage Growing Gear and that sponsorship. And then if something else kind of materializes, then that's great. But I'm not really out there chasing a lot of sponsorships all the time. And that was the last question. If you guys have any other questions, maybe I'll do a live stream coming up, but otherwise drop them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. It was a great 2024. Definitely a slower year from like an output standpoint, and just focusing on family and life, and the business kind of taking a back seat, YouTube kind of taking a back seat. And I think that focus will continue into 2025. But I think in a fun way that will really create some really cool content. And what I'm hoping is kind of solidifying this channel as the go-to place if you're interested in a piece of gear, or like just like not necessarily buying a piece of gear, because that's something that I've really thought about. I don't think this channel is really about like, you have to buy this piece of gear if you're going to get backpack. It's partly, here's some cool products that maybe you enjoy just looking at. Like with me with tech, I watch a lot of tech YouTubers. I find it really interesting to learn about the coolest new products, technologies, but I'm not out there buying every new phone that I watch a video on. And I think that's how I want this channel to kind of be. Like, I'm showing you some cool products, some cool technologies. If it's something that you want to buy, cool. If you don't, then hopefully you learned something and got to see something really cool. And that's going to be kind of the trend going into 2025 with the testing, the awards, the trips, the gear lists, and I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for it. And it's gonna be a good year, and excited to bring you guys along on the journey. If you do want to see one of those gear award videos, go check out my 2024 backpacking gear awards. I think it's a really fun video that showcases some of the innovation that's happened in 2024 and where the limits are being pushed from a gear perspective.